Hi, how you doing? Welcome back. We're still in lockdown, so I'm sure, like me, many of you will be spending some of the time to do a bit of processing in Lightroom and Photoshop. So what I thought I'd do is I'll put together a quick film with 10 top tips for doing things a bit more quickly and more efficiently in Lightroom. So I'll get the computer fired up and just run through those things that just make your life a little bit easier. So let's get to it.
Well, here we go with tip number one. If you're anything like me, when you're importing images into Lightroom and working with them, you probably end up with a lot of images along the bottom here, probably too many. My process is when I first import them, I delete all the dross. I then go through my editing and delete and delete. I end up with the images I'm happy with, but usually still quite a lot. And so then I want to apply a rating system. Quite often, people will click on the image. So I've got, I don't know, 10 or 11 unedited images here just to demonstrate. So people will click on the image, select the rating, so 1 to 5. So on this one, 5. Click the next image, maybe 4. That's an image of Venice. Click the next, and that's quite time consuming. There's a much easier way. If you go to your very first image, then press caps lock. When you now press 5, it jumps to the next image. Press 4, jumps to the next image. That's unedited. Press 1, jumps to the next image. Press 3, jumps to the next image. Oh, there's me. Must be a 5. Jumps to the next image. Just a really quick way of saving yourself some time. Oh, that also works with the color selection for rating. So give it a try. Save yourself a few seconds. So here we are with tip number two, and this is a classic that we all probably do. You occasionally get dust spots on your lens or on your sensor, and you need to remove them from the image. Sometimes it's quite hard to see those dust spots. This is a classic example, this snow cloud moving across this mountain in Norway. It's a grey cloud, it's hard to see the dust. We click the spot removal tool and you can try your best and you can zoom in, but actually there's a really simple way of highlighting the dust. Come down here to visualize spots, click that little checkbox there. You can alter the slider so it alters how kind of extreme that is. But if I go full extreme, look, there's a massive dust spot there, one in the corner, and if I zoom in, I can tidy up some more. Uh, Click done, those dust spots are gone. Easy peasy. Now tip number three, and this is to do with cropping. We all crop, we all click this button, and the rule of thirds guides comes up, which is great, really useful. But did you know there are other overlay options? Just press O and you change your overlay. Press O again and it keeps changing. And you can cycle through the different options that are really useful to help you decide on your crop. Keep going and you're back to rule of thirds. Um, a quick bonus tip or two, some of these are alterable. So if I go to, for example, the golden spiral, if I click Shift and O, it moves, it relocates, and I can cycle through back to the beginning. Uh, Works incredibly well and is really handy. And then just one more very quick tip. Sometimes, not in maybe on an image like this or in a landscape image, you want to change from a horizontal crop to a vertical crop. You can choose the aspect tool here and do it manually, or there's a really quick way. Just press X and it chooses portrait crop for you. Press X again, it switches back to landscape. So, tip number four, hope you're keeping up. Here's a classic one. It's just an annoyance, really. I've got this lovely image of St. Quovan's Church at sunset, but I want to make an alteration with the sky. Come over to graduated filter, drop the filter down, make my alterations. I'm going to, just to show extreme, uh, boost the exposure. I then find that these pins are quite distracting. And you can go over here, click the tool, it turns off, click the tool again, uh, click the button, and you're back using that. It's a much easier way to remove the distraction. Come down to the bottom, show edit pins, defaults to always, choose auto. The pin is visible while you have your cursor over the image. Move your cursor off the image, disappears. Move it back, reappears. Move it across, make your adjustments. You don't have the distraction of the pin. Move it back, pin appears, move your pin. Bingo. Here we are with tip number 5, and it's to do with cropping. Here's this image of Venice. I want to crop the image, and this is a classic view you see when you're cropping. I find this a distraction. What you can see around the outside is a real distraction to the eye, and sometimes it's hard to be precise with the crop. Wouldn't it be great to be able to move that distraction? Well, it is. Just press L, lights out, press L again, everything goes dark. All you see when you're cropping is the end result. All the distractions are gone. Crop the image where you want, press L again, lights come back on, and you're done. Tip number 6, and a lovely scene here at Donnan Castle up in Scotland. And I might want to make some adjustments here in the foreground. This is an unedited image just to show you the extremes. Might use my adjustment brush tool to alter the exposure. I'm going to go extreme here, but go full kind of to the right on my exposure, and I click, and it's quite a blunt tool, very, very blunt, very harsh. Much better way of working is to just scroll down, and here you got your flow. I don't. Lots of people kind of miss these and ignore what's going on. So I'm just going to undo that brush, move to my flow, move it down to about, I don't know, 20, 25. Still got my extreme exposure, but what's happened now is rather than being a blunt tool, this has turned into kind of a spray can. So if I press and hold, it applies a much more subtle approach. It's kind of like spraying, like painting. And if I keep my finger down and keep brushing, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter, or darker, whichever way you're going. Much more precise, much more helpful, and you can paint to your heart's content until you get the exposure you want. So tip number 7 is about these sliders. These sliders are great. Exposure, obviously, we all know Lightroom and kind of the opportunities to make these alterations down here. And I do find that it can be a bit jumpy, and to get a precise reading is sometimes a little bit hard when you're trying to move the slider itself. Well, there is another option. Just go over to the numbers next to the slider, click your mouse, hold it, and slide left and right, and it moves much more subtly, and it allows you more precision. So it's worth trying. Some people prefer the slider. I actually prefer moving the numbers. Just give it a go. And then here's a bonus. I don't know if you know this, but if you click on if you want to reset to the default, double click on exposure. It's gone. Happens for every slider where there's a name next to it. If you double click on the name, it resets to the default position. There you go. Here's tip number 8. It's an image that's unprocessed. I'll just do a quick couple of things to um, accentuate the changes I'm going to make. So do that. So process that image, and sometimes you spend quite a lot of time processing an image and you can't remember what it looked like beforehand. So as a quick key, press the backslash button and you get the before view. Press it again, after, before, after. Or if you want to see it side by side, press the Y key and you get the split screen. Kind of obviously before and after. Or even press Alt and Y and you get before and after, up and below. Just a quick way of seeing what you've done so far and trying to keep track of what's happened. Tip number 9, one of the things that can really affect the quality of an image is over sharpening. Now this is an unedited image, but I'm going to show you kind of the issue around sharpening. Like quite a lot of people love the sharpening, and kind of will whack sharpening quite high because they're looking at things in the foreground and trying to get them sharp. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm happy to play with the sharpening, but it can introduce noise. Believe me, you probably won't be able to see it on YouTube, but adding that amount of sharpening is adding noise, particularly into the mountains and the clouds. But what if you just want to sharpen the boats in the foreground? Look at the masking tool down here. There's a slider. Click your Alt button, hold down your masking tool. As you move your masking tool towards the right, what is being revealed in white is what we sharpened. So as I move right towards the end of the scale, I'm now only applying sharpening to the boats and to the skyline. So I'm being much more precise. Not anything in black is not being sharpened. Anything that white shows white is being sharpened. Just a nice little tool to play with to be more precise with your sharpening. And for tip number 10, I've got to choose an image with me in. Again, unedited. This is me looking over the Elan Valley. One thing to help with composition is to put an overlay on your image, a loop overlay. So if you press Control, Alt, and O, up comes your overlay. This is in Photoshop. You can drag in grids from the side. You can't do that in Lightroom, but this is the next best alternative. So I've got my grid now, which helps me with composition. But if I hold Control, I can move up to the grid at the top here, where it says size, click my mouse, scroll right and left, and I can make the grid bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller. Or if I go to opacity, still holding Control, click on opacity, hold the mouse, make that grid really bold, or make it fade into the background. Bold or fade into the background. Just turn that grid off again with Control, Alt, and O. Or there is another view. If you go up to here on the control bar, View, come down to Loop Overlay, click Guides. There's a little handy crosshair. Also, if you press Control, you can grab the middle of that crosshair and move it wherever you like. Right on my head. Just helps with composition.
Well, there you go. 10 quick tips to hopefully make your Lightroom experience a bit better. There's loads of stuff in Lightroom that's kind of a little bit hidden, and kind of you find these things out as you go along. So hopefully there's some new things for you. If you've got any that you'd like to share, any tips, put in the comments below, and do let me know if you've got any questions. Be grateful for a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, be great to see you subscribing. I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.